All right, this is now Cold War Day 5, and this is 5A. I call this New Leaders. Um, so in 1952, we have a presidential election. We elect former General Dwight D. Eisenhower, or Ike, as he was called, and Eisenhower brings in new policy into the Cold War. We get the idea of brinkmanship, we get the idea of massive retaliation, and lastly, an organization that was called the OSS in World War II will be rebranded the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, spies, right? So we're kind of reamping this idea and trying to solve this. Eisenhower ultimately is the one who's going to figure out the solution to the Korean conflict that we talked about yesterday in class. Now, Stalin passes away. This also helps to end Korea. And the man who is selected, if you will, wins power, more or less, is a man named Nikita Khrushchev. And Nikita Khrushchev reads something called Stalin's Crimes in front of the Duma, basically their Congress. And he announced the policy of de-Stalinization. A lot of people say, oh my gosh, he doesn't want communism, and we're going to broadcast this. Guys, the idea of de-Stalinization was that Stalin took communism away from what Karl Marx had originally intended. The gulags, the purges, all these horrible things. So we want to remove any aspect of him being almost godlike and get back to what communism originally was. That's what Khrushchev meant. Okay? Now, Stalin and Hitler and Mussolini, we call these people cult of personalities, and there's a good song here. My song for you is that, The Living Color, an all African-American rock band did Cult of Personality, in which they talk about people who take on this almost godlike status, and people begin to believe their every word as doctrine, and they're infallible. They can't make a mistake. We've got to listen to them. And that's a dangerous concept. Very, very dangerous. So Stalin is a big cult of personality, and this is what Khrushchev is wanting to end. Now, we controlled a radio station called Radio Free Europe, and we broadcast Stalin's crimes to the Eastern Bloc. Basically, do you see what he's saying here? We took it as he doesn't want communism. He was meaning get Stalin out of communism. Two countries saw it as we saw it and saw their opportunity to rebel and get out of the Soviet Union. And so how are they dealt with? In 1956, there are two crises. Poland and then also Hungary. Now, the protest in Poland, okay, the Polish Communist Party wanted a series of reforms. They elected a first secretary. They declared that Poland had the right to follow its own path. They compromised, and they pledged to remain in the Warsaw Pact. So, basically, they tried to call them. Now, Hungarian leader Emir Nagy declared Hungary a free nation. Okay, he promised free elections and different things like that. 3 days later, Soviet tanks attacked Budapest, which is the capital of Hungary, and basically reestablished control of the country and said, no, 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 you're not doing this. So whereas Poland was kind of just demanding and got what they wanted, when Hungary tried it, they squashed it. So we learn here, Nikita Khrushchev is not a man to be trifled with. He may be a little bit more easy to talk with. He's not going to stick you in a gulag like Stalin, but he is nonetheless still a totalitarian and authoritarian leader, and he will use the iron fist if he has to put you in his place. So remember that. Now, also, Stalin had suppressed a lot of just literature and good literature. Now, Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote a book. It was called A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. And this is our first glimpse into what was the Gulag hell. What was it like to be in one of these Soviet work camps? He was in it. He describes it for us, and a lot of people learn that Stalin was a bad dude. Okay. Then we also have Boris Pasternak, and Boris Pasternak is going to write Dr. Zhivago. Again, kind of the idea of this kind of more less radicalized Stalin view of communism and what communism should be like. And Dr. Zhivago also, I can remember my mother having this on 3 VHS cassettes. This was the quintessential chick flick. All right. I imagine this might take up like 2 DVDs now. I mean, this is going to be a long movie, so don't rent this one unless you have like 6 hours to spare. All right. But it is a good book, and it does learn a lot of things. The book is not as long as the movie, because of course we have to dramatize it out, right? That's what everything's about. So this was the first half of day 5. Make sure you watch 5B to coincide with this one.